Well, hello again. This is Brian Copeland talking. Welcome to another edition of Copeland's Corner. We're doing something a little different this week. Now, we are normally a podcast. This is episode number 156. We've done 155 of these over the course of the last couple of years. And this one, in addition to recording it as a podcast, we're also using video. And we're going to put it up over social media, over YouTube and some other platforms. So you actually get to watch us do this. This is the first time we're kind of figuring it out as we go along. So, just kind of ride with us on this. Welcome to my pool room. This is my family room. I got my pool table here. I'm lousy at it. I should be much better at pool for having a pool table. I really should be, but I've got it and it looks good behind me. Before we get into headliners and the headlines, we got a great lineup this week. If all goes well, I won't tell you who's here until they're here, because you never know with technology if they're going to make it or not. We do this all over Zoom. I do want to start with this. Did you see the movie The Blind Side when it came out? I saw it, absolutely loved it. I think I saw it 2 or 3 times, and then I've watched it, when it's come on cable or when it's come on streaming, and it's a real feel-good movie, about this rich white family that takes in this homeless African-American kid, and they find out that he's got a real talent for football, and they help him get a scholarship to Ole Miss. And he ends up playing professional football. True story. Michael Orr is the name of the player, based on a book, the book The Blind Side by Michael Lewis. So again, real feel-good movie. So in the last 48 hours, the feel-good part of this movie's kind of come apart, as Michael Orr has filed a lawsuit against the Tuohys. The Tuohys are the family who adopted him, claiming that he just found out, like in the last week, that they didn't adopt him. He was never adopted by him, and that the paper that they had him sign and represented as being his adoption paper when he was 18 was actually a conservatorship that gave the Tuohys control over his likeness, his image, and his money. And he was supposed to get a percentage of the proceeds from the movie The Blind Side, and he says he never got a dime. The Tuohys said yes, he did. He says he never got a penny for it. So he's suing for unspecified damages. You may recall that Sandra Bullock won an Academy Award for Best Actress for playing Leanne Tuohy, who's the matriarch of the family. And the thing that's really messed up, and why I'm talking about this, is that people are attacking Sandra Bullock, saying that she should return her Academy Award for playing that part. And I mean, it's just messed up. What did she have to do with this? If the allegations are true, and if in fact that the Tuohy family did screw over Michael Orr, she had nothing to do with it. She read a script, she liked the part, she took the part, she acted the hell out of it, and she won an Academy Award. So why should she have to return her award? And on top of that, she's getting attacked by all these trolls on social media, and her longtime partner just died. Like in the last, I guess, week or two. They'd been together for years, and he passed away from, I believe it was cancer, leukemia, something like that. And so on top of dealing with all this grief, she's got all these idiots who are after her for something she had absolutely nothing to do with. Nothing to do with whatsoever. This cancel culture that we live in is just absolutely ridiculous. So I'm making this short, I'm making this brief. Leave Sandra Bullock alone. She had nothing to do with this whatsoever. Follow the story, find out if Michael Orr is accurate. The Tuohys say that they love him, and that no, they didn't adopt him as a son. They tried to, but they were told that they couldn't because he was 18. So the conservatorship is real, but that he got every penny that he was entitled to. Follow the story, we'll see where it goes. But in the meantime, leave Sandra Bullock alone. This is the part of the podcast, or I should say the YouTube cast that we call Headliners on the Headlines. Joining me, we've got a very special panel this week. Don Reed, who's one of our regulars, is here. Good to see you, Don, as always. Ron Vigh is back. Hello, Ron. Good to see you. And
hi there.
For the first time, Greg Proops is here from Full Circle with Whose Line Is it's not Whose Line Is It Anyway, it's Whose Live Is It Anyway is the tour, right?
See what we did? We changed one letter and made everything new again.
No, you improv one letter.
Yeah, we made up a letter. We changed it from N to V without any previous consultation.
We were talking off the air about Boz Scaggs and Boz Scaggs coming to town. He was saying how you've seen him and he can still hit the notes. There's nothing sadder for me than going like have you gone to the county fair to see somebody who was like one of your like favorites, like when you were like in school, and so you go and you see him and they just can't. Yeah. I went and saw REO Speedwagon.
Oh, honey.
Well, I know I should be slapped for going to see REO Speedwagon.
I was going to say one, Brian. Did they want to keep on loving you?
They did that. They tried to do that.
Yeah.
I can tell you they definitely can't fight this feeling anymore. That is for certain. But I will tell you this, they had a lot of new stuff, and the new stuff was great. It was fine. It was in a key that they could hit. They can't hit keys they could hit 40 years ago, but the stuff that they're writing now is in a key that they can hit. It was wonderful, the new stuff. But when they played the hits, the stuff everybody came there to hear, forget it. I had somebody try to drag me to Air Supply. It's like, nah.
It's so sad, like, when that happens on the Vegas Strip right now. Foreigner is doing a big concert, and they're apparently like really rocking it. But last year, I went to see Hall & Oates in Reno, and they can't hit any notes.
Really?
Yeah, it's very sad. But
I've seen him online. He's hitting those notes.
He was not in Reno that night. I'll tell you that much. But the night after, because we're already there, I saw Belinda Carlisle, and she is doing really great.
Yeah.
So, and then I wanted to see Steely Dan, and then I looked him up on YouTube, and I no longer want to see Steely Dan.
I will tell you, one of the worst concerts I ever went to in my life was Hall & Oates, and this is years ago.
Really?
Yeah, they did a lot. It was at the Concord Pavilion in Concord, California. Which is an outdoor amphitheater thing. We had lawn seats, and once you get, you got the lawn and you got the chairs and whatnot. They just there's some bands that are just better in the studio, and I got the vibe that they were one of those bands, that was like better in the studio.
That's so hard to believe.
Pardon?
It's really hard to believe because he does so many live performances on YouTube with the OJs and all the throwback bands, and sings their songs with them and some of his songs. It's called Daryl's House or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's outstanding. So
if you had just caught them on a bad night, maybe they had a bad engineer and it was a bad mix. There's a lot of stuff.
Can you hear me right now?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Yeah.
So maybe it was your hearing.
You were talking a lot of Blue-Eyed Soul bands here. I love it.
Really
Hall & Oates and I don't know, Steely Dan sort of qualifies, I guess, as a Blue-Eyed Soul. Certainly Boz Scaggs.
Boz Scaggs, sir. Have you seen Garfunkel and Oates?
Yeah.
Have you guys heard of Garfunkel and Oates?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The two comedians, right?
Yes. Yeah. I have not seen them. Are they good or are they funny, Greg?
They're a comedy act. So they do like singing mixed with comedy. It's not really a parody of either one. I mean, I get the joke. They're lovely women. They're really nice people. So they're good fun to see.
I'm supposed to remember her name, but I did a movie with her, the movie Unleashed, and she had the lead role. The shorter one with this great haircut.
Oh yeah, I can't think of her name. The dark-haired one. She's really lovely too.
Yeah.
They ended up on a whole bunch of stuff,
Well, she did Big Bang Theory. She played Raj's girlfriend for.
Oh right.
Big Bang Theory. That was the first thing I ever saw her in. So, but I'll have to check them out. Well, let's get to the news. And you know, I what I do when I'm preparing this, I spend like 2 or 3 hours going through all of the different, news websites and going through Twitter and what's trending and what's not. And it's all Trump. I mean, that's all anybody's talking about. So I'm sure he's very happy today because it's all about him. So here's where I want to start. I want to start with this. I have notes here. I'm reading from notes. Okay, so you got a Republican frontrunner who is charged with 91 criminal charges over 3 jurisdictions, including racketeering. Racketeering, a guy,
Yeah.
racketeering. I mean, that's like Al Capone stuff. You know, that's John Gotti, racketeering, violating the RICO Act. Yet he is ahead in the GOP primary by double digits. And I saw a video from Iowa where NBC was talking to Trump voters and asking them, what do you think about the indictments? Well, I think that they're stupid. I think that that there's just Democrats out to get them. They're just trying to dig stuff up. Okay, well, do you know what the indictments are about? Nah, I haven't had time to watch it. No, I haven't read it. No, my wife, one guy said, well, no, my wife keeps up on that. She watches Fox News all the time. Oh. But they have no idea. And some guys said that the 4th indictment makes him want to vote for Trump more. So I guess the question that I will put to you, and maybe it's a rhetorical question, is what the fuck is wrong with these people? Oh my God.
I mean,
You're speechless. You're speechless. There's no answer.
Go ahead. I'm dumbfounded. Please go.
I mean, I'm dumbfounded, and it is really irritating. And I bet you that my family in New Jersey is part of these people. And I'm very sad about these indictments because I am going on a vacation to New Jersey next week. One without comedy, one just to see my family. And I'm not going to be sane by the end of it. I'm not at all, because there are Fox News watching people. That's their only source of information, and they all are under the witch hunt. They're under the witch hunt thing, and that's all they think. And I don't know how they can be brainwashed, because they're very smart people. They are very open people. My uncle, who's now passed, served in the military, and before he died, he did so much with Veterans Affairs that even when all these indictments weren't there, I couldn't understand how he could be such a Trump supporter. With all of that happening, even on his funeral, I had a military salute, and I'm like, this guy, dodged the draft and had a million other reasons. And so I can't understand why they are so brainwashed. But I don't know. I think there needs to also be less Republican nominees at the same time, because, yeah.
George W. Bush looks like Lincoln right now. He does.
George Lincoln Rockwell.
George Lincoln Rockwell. But remember when he was the evil guy? Remember that?
I so do.
Yeah.
And
didn't look too bad.
I try to keep that alive because there's this whole, the media wants to bury everything and not remember anything. And they're like, well, how did Trump happen? And it's like, well, I'm old enough to remember Nixon, Reagan, HW. It's a through line. They were all corrupt, and they were all white supremacists, and they were all warmongering, corporate, hateful dudes. And they kept it under a veneer of respectability and wore a tie and went to Harvard and all that. And then they unleashed the reality guy who basically, I mean, he called people riggers the other day. Do you remember the Flip Wilson routine from the 60s? My mother was a rigger. You see the busboy back there, he's a rigger. They're all rigged. Like, I mean, I said to Jennifer 4 days ago, I mean, it's not even coded anymore, So my family's the same way, of course, Ron. I think all white people face the horrible possibility of going home and facing a room full of Trumpkins. And it's not about
you're in Northern California.
On one side. I mean, on the hillbilly side.
Okay, you're still raised in Northern California. So is your Bay Area family like that?
I have no family in the Bay Area. My family lives in Mississippi and Oklahoma and West Virginia and shit like that. And they're some of them are enlightened, and some of them. My mother was always a Roosevelt Democrat. She loved Bill Clinton. But my father was a thoroughgoing Nazi, And strangely, his side of the family is the one that's liberal. My point is this: I think people subscribe to this the idea that people will vote against their interests is part of that Orwellian thing of being able to hold two simultaneously diametrically opposed ideas at the same time and believe they're both true. On the one hand, he's making America great. On the other hand, you know for a fact that he's not making America great. But it simply doesn't matter because he's hurting the people you want hurt. And those ephemeral enemies, whether they're real or imaginary, it really doesn't matter at this point, because you watch the news and you see the Republicans, they don't talk about anything that's actually happening.
No, they
The
don't.
Hunter Biden and something about the border all the time.
And Barbie.
And Barbie
And Black Mermaids.
and Black Mermaids and trans kids and don't say gay in school, things that literally 70% of the population honestly don't give a toss about. So they're living in a fantasy world. The media is owned by people like Rupert Murdoch and Elon Musk and whatnot, and they're Nazis. I mean, I don't put like a huge fine point on it. So, Brian, you worked for many fine corporations in your time.
I work for, well, 5 corporations. I will say I work for a number of television and radio news stations over news organizations over the years. And yeah, there is philanthropy and good things that are done by these corporations when there are cameras around. But you know, by and large, you know, the way a lot of these corporations treat their employees is just, you know, disgusting and despicable. Let me give Don a shot. Now, you were saying you were dumbfounded.
Yeah, I have some friends who are visiting in Los Angeles right now, and there are moments that they just break into tears, thinking about going back to talk to their mother and father, who are deep blinded Trumpers in the face of clear facts. Just no, you don't get it, you don't understand it, and then injecting God into the dynamic that God wants Trump to save us, and it's just so twisted. And the thing is, that level of not getting factual things that are happening in the real world is so dangerous. It's dangerous. If he were to ever get in power again, I don't know what our lives would look like.
Well, I will tell you something that gives me hope, because you know the big fear is that he will get reelected. He will not win the popular vote, but there is, in theory, a chance that he could squeak by in the electoral college vote somewhere. Well, there's a new AP poll out today that shows that, make sure I get the number right, 64% of Americans, 64% said they will definitely not support him or probably not support him.
Yes.
So, and that's in the general election. Now, in terms of the Republican primary, I mean, he's way out there. I mean, nobody's even close. He's way over 50%. But in terms of the general election, he's completely turned off moderates and independents, rather. 67% of independents say no, we want nothing to do with it. 32% of Republicans say that they want nothing to do with it. And then, you know, you've got your Democrats, which is, you know, off the charts in terms of there's no way that they're voting for him. So in terms of the general election, I have a hope and a firm belief that in a general election, he's not going to be able to pull the wool over people's eyes. Plus, there's not going to be a debate. You know, the Republicans decided that there would not be presidential debates this time. Let me ask you this question. Biden has made the calculated choice not to discuss Trump's criminal issues at all. In fact, he issued a directive to everybody in Biden world that under no circumstances are they to talk about Trump's criminal problems or to talk about anything he's charged with, his trials, nothing. They instead are supposed to be talking about values and talking about the economy and talking about how to make Americans' lives better. That's their mantra. That's what they need to stick to. Now, the strategists are saying that that's a mistake because of the fact that since this is, as I said, everywhere I look today, it's all Trump. Every story, everywhere, it's all Trump. And to ignore that is like putting your head in the sand. And then they go back to Biden world and goes, well, wait a minute, Americans already know what he's doing. So we're not going to change anybody's mind about him. They know what it is he's doing. So it doesn't do us any good. It's just us piling on if we jump into it and comment on it. So what do you think? Should Biden be talking about this, or should he be sticking to what he's doing?
I think it could be potentially a good chess move not to be talking about it. There's a potential power in that so many people want to line up with see, we told you Biden was weaponizing the criminal justice system. See there? You see him hopping on too? But when he's not addressing it, they're going to say it anyway, but this gives them less ammunition to point at that.
I agree with that, Don. And I think that he's in a real precarious state. The media will literally do anything to have a horse race. They'll ignore the 1 million COVID deaths. They'll ignore the 2 impeachments, the 91 indictments, the attacking the Capitol, the incitements to violence, the racism. They literally will ignore all of that so that they can say that there's a possibility he'll win. And I think that the Republicans have basically given over this cycle. I think they've realized that they literally have nothing to sell. And we're in kind of where W was at the end of 2008, when Obama won and then won again roundly. They know, like in Clinton, when Clinton, literally they had the ball for 12 years before Clinton, and then they didn't have the ball. And I think that's where we're at. Also, the reason I agree with John so much is Joe Biden's in a very unique position. He was vice president to the first Black president, which broke America into pieces, white America, and then put a Black woman in the White House, which extra special broke them. And then Georgia, where they put a Jew and a Black man in the Senate from Georgia, which made them literally attack the Capitol.
And let's not forget putting a Black woman on the Supreme Court.
Thank you. So his position is Alvin Bragg, Fani Willis. He is absolutely perceived through that prism by the white media and by white people. So for him to start talking smack about Trump's a criminal and all that literally plays into their hands. And I think taking the high road, as Michelle Obama would have suggested, is the right thing to do. And I'm reminded. Yeah, I'm reminded of when JFK was assassinated. I think it was Malcolm X who said, "All the chickens have come home to roost." And that's what's happened now, right? You've seen the crime, insane crime for 4 years, attacking the Capitol. Now, honey, the law kicked in, the law. And because the law is being enforced by these Black DAs, it makes them literally lose their mind.
It's poetic justice, because if you look at the places where they were claiming voter fraud, Milwaukee, Detroit, Fulton County, it's all places that have large numbers of African-American voters.
Yeah.
And so what they tried to do was disenfranchise African-American voters. Then they pick on the 2 poll workers, Ruby Freeman and her daughter, claiming that they were known vote scammers who were stuffing the ballot box for Biden. And it's so bad that they literally had to flee their homes, and they're in hiding because of death threats from the thugs who follow Trump. So I just think it's poetic justice that a large number of the people who were holding him accountable, Tanya Chutkan, who's going to be the judge, who's the judge
from Jamaica.
Yeah, from Jamaica.
Awesome.
And the Jack Smith thing. I mean, it's just, and she's not messing around.
Oh, no.
She is not messing around. She won't put him in jail. And she's smart that she won't put him in jail for contempt, because if he does that, that plays into his hands, because now he's a political prisoner. Once you put him in jail, all of his followers will be saying this political prisoner. Now, what she's saying is, okay, you keep running your mouth, I'm just going to make the trial sooner. Every time you talk, every time you threaten somebody, that you just move that to trial date. And I think that's brilliant. I think that's absolutely brilliant. Another part of this AP poll, again, that shows that the Republicans are in trouble, is that 67% of Americans, and that is Democrats, Republicans, and independents, are opposed to the overturning of Roe versus Wade. 67%. However, the Republicans who are in power are forging ahead with a promise and a plan to have a nationwide abortion ban. So it's like, are you guys like on a death wish mission? You know, are you kamikazes? What are you doing?
I say, let's stop telling them that they're going down a railroad with a bonfire at the end of it, because they're not switching. They're staying on this abortion plan, this abortion stance, and it keeps failing over and over. It's been clear in super, super red spots. Kansas, Ohio, they're going like, no, we don't want that. But they're still trying to march along on it. I say, don't tell them. Don't tell them to stop. Let them keep doing it.
Don't take the shovel out of their hands. Right. let them keep digging. You know, let them keep digging. Let's see, what else have we got here? Oh, okay. This is one where I'm just, I've never understood this story. A gentleman by the name of Samuel Miele, M-I-E-L-E, who is a fundraiser for George Santos. Okay, that tells you pretty much all you need to know. He was indicted on allegations that he had impersonated a top aide to a member of the House leadership while soliciting funds for Santos. He's charged with 4 counts of wire fraud, 1 count of aggravated identity theft. What he did was he impersonated a gentleman by the name of Dan Meyer, and Meyer, at the time he was impersonating him, was the chief of staff for Speaker Kevin McCarthy. So he impersonated somebody in order to get funds for the candidate who was impersonating everybody, quite frankly. Best meme I've seen in 6 months is the meme that says, a meme of George Santos in front of a huge crowd, and it says George Santos delivering his famous "I Have a Dream" speech.
Right? I loved him in the moon landing. We're at a real Craigslist moment for them, the Republican Party. Obviously, Gates, Babert, Gozar, Santos, Marjorie Taylor Greene, they're not qualified to run the tofuti shop. They're literally morons. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is there to run the social media and keep the hate cycle going at all moments. So is Babert. And they detest each other, which my wife's always pointing out to me. If you let them run, they will eat each other, which they're tending to do because they hate each other.
She's right.
Yeah. And Santos is like the ultimate extension of that. He's literally a complete, now mind you, they're not the first charlatans to ever be in Congress, but they're so far below any, you know, if you look at the Democratic bench in Congress and all the really wonderful young congressional people, Chantel Brown and whatnot, we have a gigantic bench and a real forward-looking, you know, the next 10, 20 years, there's a lot of Democratic talent. And the Republicans are literally reduced to basically kind of going online. And I think Lauren Babert might have been a call girl, and you know what I mean? Like, and Santos is just a nothing. I think that a bunch of them are going to lose their seats in the next congressional election.
So but you know, they've been going down this road for a while. If you go back to the 2012 cycle, the 2 races I remember the most were Claire McCaskill and Todd Aiken, who were running in Missouri. And Aiken made that comment. And again, this wouldn't be here's the sick thing. This wouldn't be disqualifying today.
Yeah.
Here's what he said. He said that a woman could not get pregnant if it was a legitimate rape.
Legitimate rape.
Could not get pregnant for being a legitimate rape, and that was it. Party's over. He was out. Yeah. And the other one was that woman whose name I cannot remember, who actually had to go out and make a statement that she's not a witch.
Oh, Christine, what's her name, from New Jersey?
Yeah. That she's not a witch. Now I'll tell you a story. My agent at the time represented a lot of reality people, a lot of people who did reality TV shows and reality hosts and whatnot. And he signed her, to try to get her some kind of reality gigs after she lost the election. And what he got her was Dancing with the Stars. Dancing with the Stars wanted her on. And she turned it down because she said, quote, "It's not presidential."
What?
That's what she said. She wouldn't do Dancing with the Stars because she felt it wasn't presidential. She had higher aspirations and she felt that it wasn't presidential.
Wow.
Dancing with the Stars. That's just delusional.
Well,
Christine O'Donnell.
Yeah. Christine O'Donnell.
I could see seeing George Santos on Dancing with the Stars in like 4 years from now,
Oh, no question.
Yeah. The thing about George Santos that initially lost me was gay Republican. Like there's that. And then what kills me about George Santos too is that where did you think he learned this behavior? Would have he done this in 2008 or 2010? This is all a precedent set by Trump and all of those people that he feels like he can get away with it. I do like his bow ties though.
What about his hips though? His childbearing hips. I mean, wow, honey.
All right. So BuzzFeed interviewed celebrities who supported Trump in 2016 and 2020 to see if they still supported him today. And here's the list of people they talked to: John Voight,
Golly,
Kid Rock, Scott Baio. Scott Baio, who, by the way, held a press conference to announce that he was leaving California because of the homelessness problem. And he's moved to Florida because California, after 45 years of living here, California's gone to hell in a handbasket. So he wants no part of it. So he's leaving. And people basically go, well, don't let the Golden Gate hit you in the ass on the way out the door, man.
Yeah.
But Scott Baio, Roseanne Barr, Ted Nugent.
Quite a bunch you got here.
Dean Cain. Remember Dean Cain from
Superman.
From Lois and Superman?
Yeah.
With Terry Hatcher. He was Superman and Terry Hatcher's Lois Lane.
Yes. He often hosts the Hollywood Parade in LA on TV. I mean, the Christmas parade.
Right on the back of
they wear pretend sweaters because it's never cold enough, and
so they put sweaters on.
They do. They wear you've seen it. They wear sweaters. They act like it's Christmassy because it's not, and they often get Dean Cain to do it. Yeah.
Well, he got, from what I understand, like he was on Supergirl for a while playing her father, and all of a sudden he just disappeared. And I think it was because of some right-wing Trump thing he tweeted or said or something. But he just disappeared and the character was never mentioned again. Also on this list, Christy Swanson, who was the original Vampire Slayer. Stephen Baldwin, Alec Baldwin's brother. Not even a good Baldwin. Stephen
they must have a great Thanksgiving.
You think?
Yeah.
With Alec going crazy.
Randy Quaid. I interviewed him about 20 years ago, and he was crazy ass then. I talked to Randy Quaid, and finally Stacey Dash.
Oh, honey.
Is there such a thing as an aunt, Tom? Is there such a thing?
Home run. Out of the park. Out of the park. Oh my goodness. Tom. Whoa, I'll never forget that. That's gold. You gotta get that in your act immediately.
It's Stacey
Dash. Go and get on stage.
It's
my goodness, on Tom.
It's Stacey Dash. Complete digression. On Sunday morning, I was craving pancakes, and I've been good. I'm still trying to lose COVID weight. I've lost 30 pounds. I've still got about 15 to go from COVID weight. But I was craving pancakes. I haven't had pancakes in a couple of years. So I went to Safeway to get some pancake mix, and they don't have Aunt Jemima stuff anymore because since the George Floyd, they took Aunt Jemima off. So it's called the Milling Baking Company or something. The Milling Baking, I think the Milling Baking Company. So
there's no kindly lady with a do-rag anymore and all that.
The do-rag.
Nope. He's gone. I think the cream of wheat guy's gone.
Oh, right, the cream and wheat guy who wore the
Uncle
white
Ben?
coating. Yeah, yeah.
He's gone.
Is
I
Uncle
think
Ben there?
Uncle Ben is out of work.
Uncle Ben.
He's out of work. But yeah, the milling, baking. But here's the thing: that's the best name you could come up with. It was either
Yeah.
Aunt Jemima or that. It doesn't even roll off the tongue. At least Aunt Jemima rolled off the tongue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, out of this list that I read you, they are all strident supporters of Donald Trump today. Not a single one of them has had any introspection and thought about what's gone on, thought about what he's done, thought about what he's been charged with. Dean Cain said, after what he did the first 4 years, I can't wait to see another 4 years with Donald Trump. The man put Mexican babies in cages. I mean, little baby jails. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. I wish I were. I'm not exaggerating. The man put babies in cage. The man, that they have not reunited a number of those children that he separated from their parents at the border, that to this day that they have not been reunited because they don't know where they are. They do not know where they are. And if they, do find out who they are, they were, a baby or 1 or 2 or 3 years old, they're not going to remember their parents all these years later if they do find them and are able to reunite them. And how you can look at stuff like that and January 6th and everything else and say, I can't wait for another 4 years. It just makes no sense. It's a great Mark Twain quote I read the other day, that it's easier to fool people than it is to convince people that they've been fooled.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is they're desperate to be oppressed. You know what I mean? They want to feel victimized. And because Trump's the ultimate whiny baby, everybody's against me. If he loses an election, it's not his fault. If something goes wrong, it's not his fault. It's always these outside forces. And then there's all these perceived enemies, like immigrant children are obviously a huge threat, whereas a loaded gun in a classroom is an inevitable consequence of liberty. I think they're desperate to feel victimized. And like when Scott Baio says, I'm moving, he's letting you know that, God damn it, those mean liberals were so mean to me that I had to leave paradise and move to Texas or whatever.
Florida.
I think that's a good deal of where they're coming from. I'm in a group with Joel Murray, and he's friendly with Christy Swanson. I met her at a golf tournament years ago, and he told me he spoke to her a year or two ago, and she's like, I'm leaving and I'm moving to New Jersey. And he's like, are you aware that New Jersey's kind of a blue state? Like, so the whole, you know what I mean? We're not talking about like a well thought out, like this isn't Euclid. They're not using like mathematics here. It's literally like, you're hurting me, you're hurting my feelings. And in show business, they love to do that. They love to go, I'm the only conservative on the set, so everyone's always mad at me. The truth is, and we're in the middle of a giant strike now, you may notice that all the heads of all the production companies and all the people who own them are not screaming liberals. They are, in fact, happy to support the status quo at all, as you said, Brian, and happy to treat people very poorly when no one is looking.
People I know who, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, this is like related and unrelated, but it reminded me of a story that happened here in Las Vegas. When comedy was not quite back yet, I took a real job, and I was managing a restaurant on the Las Vegas Strip. And one day somebody comes in ahead of their people that were gonna have a reservation, and they said they need a table way in the back where nobody could see them. And we're questioning huh? Why are they a celebrity? Well, it turns out, do you remember Papa John? The guy who made all the racist comments and so forth, and then
Pizza?
Yes, it was him. And they said, the guy said, yeah, he just can't be seen eating because people will pass by and say things to him, and it will really just ruin his dinner. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, right? It'll ruin his dinner. Oh, so it just goes back to like they're never gonna learn, and like I kind of want to follow him around the casino, going, "That's Papa John, get him," you know.
So did you do it? Did you see them in a place?
Oh yeah, because you know when that's one of the reasons why I had to get out of a corporation like that, because you just have to put up with so much bullshit like that and bite your tongue and just do like there are people with money, a lot of people with money who have all their like opinions like that. They just get whatever they want, and you have to do it, and you have to like shut the F up about it. And I did that job for just under a year before the comedy started getting back, and I do not, even though I had a steady paycheck, which was nice, I could not. I just there was a lot of, and just in general outside of people like that, there's just so much. It just shows you how much greed there is out there, and I don't want like one bit of it. So
I think what I found, and I've been in comedy since I was 18 years old. I've been in show business since I was 18 years old. And the thing that I have found that the common denominator among comics who stay with it, there are a number of comics over the years who I came up with, and you too, Greg, who have dropped out, and John, you too, say the same thing, who've dropped out and they're selling cars or working at the bank or whatever. But those who have stayed with it throughout their entire adult career, primarily it's because we can't do anything else, so we don't want to work with anybody, and we can't put up with anybody's bullshit. We can't punch a time clock, and we can't put up with anybody's bullshit, anybody telling us what to do.
I agree.
There was a window of time when I co-ran the voiceover division at NBC, the entire thing. And every other day that there'd be a little pressure from the top, I said, I'll quit. I'll quit. It was right on the tip of my tongue every second, because I was in an office, and that's not how we're wired. No. We're just not wired that way.
No, to come in every day and sit down in an office, and
Well, and just in general, like being in SF for 20 years, still having a place there, still calling San Francisco Bay Area my comedy scene, even though I'm physically living in Vegas. My boyfriend has been very happy that I've been medicated over the last few years, because I caused way less scenes in public. But like, just like living in San Francisco, I never went to a Walmart. I moved to Vegas. I'm in a Walmart all the time, and it's a horrible corporation, but I'm like there, and my pharmacy is there and everything. And just under a year ago, I remember how I had to see myself out of Walmart before I like wound up getting arrested for trying to punch like this 6'5" guy, because we were online at the pharmacy, and he turns to a lady who was African American in front of me who was wearing a mask, and he said, "Take that mask off." And she replied, "Well, I had a little sniffle. I'm picking up my medication. I'm doing it for everybody's protection." And he turns around and says, "Elon Musk, the smartest man in the world, says that masks don't matter." And I just had to like, I start to say something and I turn around and leave with that sentence, So, and that I was not getting a paycheck to be there. So I say anything wherever I am. And so I just got to stay indoors a lot around here.
Red states are a whole different world. I have a friend who lives in Arizona who I go and visit every couple of months. And, I wear, even now, because there's another surge coming, I wear my mask if I'm going to be somewhere in a crowd, if I'm going into a mall, if I'm sitting in a movie theater, if I'm going in the grocery store, I'm wearing a mask. If I get in an Uber. So what I usually do is I stay in a hotel and I Uber to my friend's house. So this is in Arizona. Well, it's purple now, but it's still mostly red. The attitude's mostly red. They're both in purple, but the attitude's red. So I get in this Uber and I got my mask on, and the driver looks at me in my mask, and the driver says, "You know what? You don't need that here. My wife and I take our ivermectin every day." My wife and I take our horse dewormer. We take it I got a friend who owns horses who said that his vet told him that she has to lock up in a safe the ivermectin, because people are breaking into veterinarians' offices to steal it, to take it, because they think it protects it from COVID.
Yeah, I'm part of the Just Say Nay program.
I mean, I don't know if I told you this before, but when my dad was dying of COVID, everybody, I was doing a Zoom show at the time, right? And so we had audience from all around the world. And people were generally trying to be helpful, but also the lines of liberal and conservative were split across our audience, but we wanted that audience and we wanted our money from the Zoom show. So I didn't say too much, but people, there were people that would write me. You know, mind you, my dad's in the hospital for 9 weeks. There are people that would write me and tell me, don't listen to the government, of course. They don't know what to do and get no remdesivir and all this stuff. And one person said, you know, your dad just needs, what was it, celery, onion, and a hint of lime, and that will cure him.
What?
Yeah.
Is he a margarita?
Like, that's what I'm saying. I was like, that's how you make a Bloody Mary. That is not, you know. But I'm like, honestly, I was like, tell me your thoughts on how you would cure cancer. Like, I don't, and they were genuine, and I guess they were trying to help, and I can't fault them. But on the same hand, it was like such a dangerous narrative and something that I, you know, definitely did not want to hear during that time.
Well, have you heard what's going on in Florida right now? Oh my God. Okay, so the I want to say Surgeon General. If he's not the Surgeon General, he holds the position in the state medical community that will be the equivalent of the Surgeon General, is a COVID denier, and he's an anti-vaxxer. And he at one point said that men should not take the vaccine. There are two positions for public health administrators for the state of Florida that are vacant, that have not been filled. So they're empty. So the only person in charge in that state right now, because the governor's out running around, you know, DeSantis is running around the country trying to run for president, is this one unqualified anti-vaxxer. Well, in Florida right now, they have cases of leprosy.
Yeah.
There are lepers in Florida. I didn't know you could get leprosy.
Right.
Yeah. I haven't seen or heard about leprosy since reading Bible stories.
Right.
I mean, seriously, since reading Bible stories. But they have leprosy and they have malaria. Leprosy and malaria, both of those. So, which bothers me because, you know, somebody goes there and gets, you know, you can go, oh, wow, that's terrible, it's Florida. But people visit Florida. From other places. People go to Disney. So you go to Disney World and you pick up leprosy, and then you go back home to Montana or California or Oregon, and you spread. Yeah. I mean, that's how pandemics start. That's how epidemics start. But can you believe that? It's 2023, and there are lepers in this country because of a rejection of science.
One of my biggest accomplishments, I think, is that I just, after 2 years of doing this, sold my dad's house in Florida, and I not once had to step foot in the state of Florida during that time, and I am so happy, you know?
Well, you know, the NAACP has issued a travel advisory for black people not to go to Florida because it is inhospitable to African Americans. So
at the risk of repeating myself 1,000 times, part of the denial of public health and part of why COVID denial became so popular is much like firearms and the unlimited use of firearms everywhere. And I know I'm going to sound like I'm just saying the same thing. It's all of a piece of white supremacy. White supremacists want public health undermined because it hurts the people they want hurt. They want firearms everywhere and they don't care where their children die. Clearly they don't. If they did, they would have acted before this. So that's not even a question really, or a relevant point anymore. It's a matter of making people suffer that you want to suffer. It goes in the face of everything logical. And you know, there's no more shared reality because of the propaganda that I think we've let take over a good deal of what the information people get. And by that, I don't just mean the TV news. I mean, Facebook, Twitter, right. You know, QAnon, 4chan, blah, 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 blah.
More so, that's more so than the TV news. Unfortunately.
Yeah, way more. And okay, so to back up my claim that I keep saying over and over again, Hillary Clinton carried Black women by 94%. Biden carried Black women by, what was it, 97%. So how is it that Black women are able and are exposed to Facebook, Twitter, all the things that other people are, and are able to determine what's real and what's not and pull facts from there.
Well, there was a
Whereas-
study that was done. There was a study that was done after the 2016 election to find out how so much misinformation was spread over Facebook and stuff. And they tried a couple of experiments, and what they found is that when they put some crazy disinformation out that was geared towards the right, or geared so the algorithm for the right would spread it to the right would take it and they would retweet it and they would repost it and they would quote from it. Now, when they did it for progressives, if they saw it, they would go, huh. And then they would go to like Snopes and look it up, realize it wasn't true, and it went nowhere. And that's why it spread. That's why you had idiots going, an idiot go with a gun to a pizza parlor in Washington, looking for, pedophiles in a basement that didn't exist. You mentioned guns earlier. This is something I'd completely forgotten about, and then somebody brought it up the other day. Do you know the very first thing that the first law that the Republicans passed when the Republicans in 2017 had the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives? The first thing, literally, the first thing that they passed that Trump signed, you know what it was?
With bump stocks or something?
Pardon?
Was it bump stocks or automatic weapons or something?
It was a law to make it easier for people who had been adjudicated as mentally ill to get firearms.
Yeah.
People who had been determined by a governmental authority to be mentally ill. This allowed them to get guns. This was the first thing. It had anything with healthcare or feeding people or infrastructure or defense or anything else. Their number one priority was to make sure that crazy people could have access to firearms. That was the first thing that they did. A lot of people don't know that. Because they did it under cover of darkness. He signed the bill like in the middle of the night.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's not at the front burner now because we've got Trump sucking all the oxygen out of the room, but it was on the front burner a couple of months ago because of the mass shootings that occur every single bloody day.
Yeah.
And it's a scourge. And I couldn't, like you say, that's their first agenda, is to make sure that women who've had their husbands deemed unfit to carry firearms, they wanted them to have firearms immediately. That was part of that, so that women could be killed. They wanted all the people who have literally been committing all the mass murders lately, who have all been bubble mentally ill, blah, 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 blah. It's just something that's really important to them to make sure. And now I'm going to start sounding like I live in a van and I think John Lennon was killed by Bigfoot. But part of the misinformation, and we know for a fact because of 2016, the Russians backed Zuckerberg, the Russians backed Facebook, the Russians backed Trump, and even Bernie, for that matter, anything to beat Hillary, in other words. And part of the Russians' plan, Brexit, was to destroy Europe. And you notice that Trump was moving troops out of Europe and was going to try to destroy NATO. Since Biden's come back in, that's all gone. Now we're basically at war with them again via the Ukraine and all that. And one of the major things is guns and denial of science. And those are the things that waste resources so that they can't be used to help people. You know what I mean? I don't know if I've made a point here or just
you made it
once more reiterated that I'm angry about a good deal of things that are out of my control.
Okay, well, they're in your control in terms of the anger. I'm sorry, Don, what were you saying?
And it's just a kind of a sweeping statement about where things are going politically and my positive hope and the vision I have from my sons. My sons are 27 and 24. And their friends, their circle of friends are very progressive and in a very relaxed way, not in a plan. I have a lesbian friend and I have a Middle Eastern friend. That's their crew. And they are adamant about Trump never getting elected again. We're going to see a wave of youthful voters that's going to blow people's minds. And a part of that is some people that we've even rejected. To be specific, Kylie Jenner. People like, oh, Kylie Jenner, just, all visual and media, blah, blah, blah. But she's starting to post a lot of stuff to these young folks that is headed in the exact right direction.
Well, she's got millions of
More and
followers.
more. There's a couple of rappers who never voted their entire lives saying, we got to be ready. We got to be ready in 2024. We can't let this happen. Some people, they had never voted in their lives. And they're like 28, 29 years old. And they're saying, and via my sons and via seeing these young superstars with a lot of influence, with millions of followers, beginning to post about political issues that they just completely didn't care about, I think we're going to see a solid impact.
I'm going to leave it with this. Target announced their earnings for the quarter ending July 29th, and their sales had dropped by 5.4%. And the reason the sales dropped was because of the controversy over having Pride merchandise in the store. They had Pride merchandise in the store, and you had some right-wingers and Christians who made a big deal out of the fact that they had that they were selling things that had to do with Pride. So Target caved, and by caving, they kind of pissed off everybody, because the people that would have gone there to get stuff, it's like, why are you caving to this vocal minority? And then the people that didn't want them to sell it weren't going to buy anything anyway. My daughter was telling me a story. She went to Target, and she bought a candle, and it was a rainbow candle, and she took the rainbow candle to the up to the register, and the guy scanned it, and rather than a price coming up, what came up was "do not sell." Do not sell. Because I'm sorry, I can't sell you this. They pulled everything off the shelves, but in case some things missed, they put in the codes that you're not allowed to sell.
Wow.
So my solution is this, because they're so crazy about the fact that the LGBTQ plus community has really co-opted the rainbow. I mean, they're really anti-rainbow is what they are. So here's what my plan is: co-opt the cross.
Right?
If they co-opt the cross, that's my thought.
Yikes.
And I'm gonna burn in the fires of hell because of the fact that I said that. So, Greg, you've got the live Whose Live Is It Anyway show. So tell me, you're coming to San Francisco on August 16th or 19th?
This Saturday we'll be at Davies Hall. It'll be Drew Carey, Ryan Stiles, me, Joel Murray, Jeff B. Davis, and we're hoping that we have Gary Anthony Williams sitting in with us as well, and Laura Hall on keyboards. I have a new album coming out at the beginning of September called French Drug Deal. That I made at the Punchline last year. I'm hosting the Negro League Hall of Game Awards September 9th in Kansas City.
That's
they're
cool.
gonna have yeah, it's really awesome. They're gonna induct
in Kansas City. It's great.
Yeah.
Where they go. Yeah.
It's gonna be Jock Gooden, Dontrell Willis, Dave Stewart's gonna accept for Vita Blue, and Al Downing, and who am I forgetting? Oh, Mike Norris from the A's. So I'm looking forward to that.
All right. Ron, what are you up to?
I'm always updating my website, RONNVIGH.com, so everybody could find out stuff there. But for everybody primarily in the Bay Area, September 28th, I think, to October 1st, I'll be at Rooster Teeth Feathers in Sunnyvale. So excited to go back there. I was just at Punchline last week, so y'all missed that, but that was fun. Come to Roosters. I love Roosters.
Come up to Sunnyvale and see it. It's been a while.
Yes, please.
Okay, and Don, you're doing the It's Never Too Late show.
Yeah, I've got 3 shows left of the Never Too Late show. That's a show that's connected with the partnership with the Johnny Carson estate and Pat Hazel, former Seinfeld writer. It's my best show, and I highly suggest people come see this show. About tracking from the level of being around my grandparents and watching the Tonight Show all the way up through me working there, and the deceit and the hilarity attached to that.
Now I hear rumors you may be going off Broadway. Is that true?
They're very, very on point. Things are very aligned. I'm actually booked all the way till May 2024 with this show around the country. So the Never Too Late show, 3 shows, The Marsh.
Awesome.
The Marsh, come see it.
I'm thrilled for you. And on Sunday, I'm going to be in San Francisco at the Marsh doing my show, The Waiting Period on Depression. And I do that show free to the public. So just come on down. Don't have to pay a dime. And the hope is that if you're somebody who's struggling from depression, especially suicidal depression, hopefully I will say something that will help you. So it's at 12 o'clock, the Marsh, San Francisco. Come on out and see the show. It's absolutely free. Greg Proops, Ronn Vigh, Don Reed, thank you. A pleasure having you guys on. I really appreciate you doing it.
Thank you so much, brother.
Thanks, baby.
Thank
Our
you.
first video show. Our first video show. All right, well, that's going to do it for me. I will check you out next week. If you want to support us, a couple of ways you can do that. One is to tell anybody you can, any way that you can. Second thing you can do is that you can post on whatever platform you are listening or watching this on. Give us a 5-star review. It helps people to find the show. And, other than that, just spread the word. I will check you out next week. Until then, be kind to your neighbor. He knows where you live.